The relentless Seattle rain lashed against the giant glass windows of the 40th floor. Ilara balanced 4 extra hot vanilla lattes on a flimsy cardboard tray. Her hands shook violently. She hadn't slept in 2 solid days. The hospital had called again this morning and the news was bad. Her mother's medical bill was $30,000 past due. If Ilara didn't pay something by Friday, they were going to stop the oxygen treatments. $30,000. She made $15 an hour as a junior copywriter. The math made her stomach twist into sick, tight knots. Just deliver the coffee, she whispered to herself, staring at the grey sky outside. Don't fuck this up, just walk and breathe. She turned the corner fast, way too fast. She didn't even see the man stepping out of the private executive elevator. She just felt the sudden, brutal impact. It was like hitting a brick wall dressed in custom silk. Shit, Ilara screamed as the cardboard tray crumpled in her hands. All 4 lattes exploded upward. A wave of burning brown liquid splashed directly onto the man's crisp, perfectly white dress shirt. The paper cups hit the marble floor with a wet, messy slap. Silence dropped over the long hallway immediately. It was so quiet Ilara could hear the heavy rain hitting the glass beside them. She slowly looked up, her heart stopping completely in her chest. He was tall, much taller than her. His dark hair was styled perfectly, but a few strands now fell over his forehead, damp with her boss's expensive coffee. His face was stunning, sharp jaw, high cheekbones, dark Korean eyes that stared down at her with a heavy, unreadable weight. He didn't flinch from the burning heat. He didn't even yell. He just looked down at his ruined shirt and then looked right at her. Panic choked Ilara. Oh my, damn it, shit, I am so sorry. She dropped to her knees, grabbing a handful of rough paper napkins from her apron pocket, then jumped right back up. Without thinking, she pressed the thin paper directly against his hard chest, trying frantically to soak up the mess. The heat of his skin burned right through the wet silk. He was solid rock under there. I am so sorry, she babbled, scrubbing at the massive brown stain. I'll pay for it, I swear I'll pay for it. Please don't tell HR, if I lose this job, I'm dead. My mom is, I'm dead. I'll take it to the cleaners, just give me the shirt. The man looked down at her small, dark hands, frantically rubbing his chest. A tiny muscle feathered in his tight jaw. Then his large hand came up and wrapped around both of her wrists. His grip was warm, strong, and completely firm. Stop, he said. His voice was deep, smooth, and sent a weird, heavy shiver straight down her spine. You are just rubbing it deeper into the fabric. Ilara froze, her hands trapped against his chest. She looked up into his dark eyes, terrified. She was doomed, completely fucked. If you're hooked on Ilara and Declan's messy first meeting, do me a huge favor and drop a like on this video. It really helps the algorithm push more dark and gritty romance stories just like this straight to you. Let's chat in the comments. Do you think Ilara should just run away right now while she has the chance, or should she try to pay for the shirt even though she's broke? What do you think Declan is going to do next? Fire her on the spot or ask her out? And honestly, have you ever messed up so bad at work that you thought your entire life was over? Let me know down below. And if you are loving the drama so far, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss an update. Now back to the story. The rain kept beating against the window, sounding like small rocks hitting the glass. Ilara stared at his large hand holding her wrists. She couldn't breathe. The man let go slowly, his long fingers trailing against her skin for just a second. What is your name? He asked softly. He didn't sound mad, he sounded oddly curious. Ilara swallowed hard, her throat painfully dry. Ilara Vance, I work in marketing, level 4. He looked at the brown stain covering his chest. The shirt was probably worth more than her rent for the whole year. Level 4, he repeated, tasting the words on his tongue. Well, Ilara Vance, you owe me a shirt. I know, she whispered, looking down at her cheap, scuffed work shoes. How much is it? I can pay you a little bit every week. I don't have a lot of cash right now. The man tilted his head. He watched the way she bit her bottom lip, the way her small shoulders shook just a tiny bit under her cheap sweater. A strange, soft light flickered in his dark eyes. He found her cute. She was an absolute wreck, smelling like cheap vanilla and raw panic, but he couldn't look away from her big, terrified brown eyes. Don't worry about the money right now, he said quietly, stepping back. Just go clean up the floor before someone slips and breaks their neck. He turned and walked away, his wet shirt clinging to his broad, muscular back. Ilara let out a huge breath, her knees shaking so badly she almost fell. She didn't get fired. She rushed to the break room and grabbed a roll of cheap paper towels. After scrubbing the sticky floor until her hands cramped, she pulled her phone from her pocket to check the time. Her eyes went wide. It was 12:15. She was 15 minutes late for her lunch break, which meant she was 15 minutes late for the most important meeting of her entire life. The blind date. She threw the wet towels in the trash, grabbed her thin raincoat and ran to the elevator. She had arranged this date through an online matching service that promised fast results. She needed stability. She needed someone who could help her share the heavy burden of life, someone who wanted a quiet, simple marriage on paper. The profile said he was a mid-level corporate assistant. Boring, steady, normal. Exactly what she needed to save her mom and get out of her financial hole. The guy had great health insurance through his company, and a spouse would get full coverage from day one. That was the whole plan. The coffee shop across the street was crowded and smelled strongly of wet wool coats and roasted beans. Ilara pushed the heavy glass door open, shivering as the cold Seattle wind tried to follow her inside. She shook the water from her thick, dark curls and looked around the dim room. Booth number 4. That was the meeting spot. She walked over, wiping cold rain from her face. The booth was completely empty. She sat down heavily on the cracked leather seat, pulling her damp coat tighter around her body. She checked her phone again. No messages, no missed calls. "Damn it," she whispered, leaning her head against the cold, foggy window. "He stood me up, of course he did." She closed her eyes, fighting the heart-burning tears that threatened to fall. She was so tired. Her bones actually ached. Her bank account was empty. Her mom was lying in a hospital bed hooked up to machines that Ilara simply couldn't afford to keep running. She just wanted someone to help her. Just one person to be on her side for once in her damn life. The heavy wooden chair across from her scraped loudly against the floor. Ilara opened her eyes fast. A man sat down. He was wearing a dark grey sweater that looked incredibly soft and incredibly expensive. He had sharp, high cheekbones and dark hair that was still a little damp from the rain outside. It was him, the man from the hallway, the man whose shirt she had just ruined. Ilara's mouth dropped open. She tried to speak, but no sound came out of her throat. She pushed herself back against the booth seat, her heart hammering violently against her ribs. Did he follow her? Was he going to demand the cash for the shirt right now in the middle of a crowded cafe? The man looked at her, his handsome face completely calm. He picked up the small plastic menu on the table, glanced at it for a second, and then looked back at her. "You are late, Ilara." She stared at him, her brain totally broken. You followed me here." He put the menu down slowly. "No, I am here for a date with a woman who wants a fast marriage." He leaned forward, resting his strong arms on the table. "I believe that is you." Ilara felt the busy room spin around her. "You," she choked out, pointing a shaking finger at him. "You are Declan, the corporate assistant." "Yes," he lied smoothly. He wasn't an assistant, he was Declan Ryu. He owned the entire massive building they had just been standing in. He owned the company she worked for. He owned half the real estate in this part of the city. But looking at her right now, seeing how desperate and scared she was, he knew the absolute truth would ruin everything. She would run away if she found out he was a billionaire. He didn't want her to run. He wanted her to stay right here in this booth. "I am Declan," he repeated, holding her gaze. Ilara let out a shaky breath, rubbing her temples. But I just ruined your shirt. Why didn't you say anything in the hallway when it happened?" "You were busy throwing boiling coffee on me," Declan said, his lips twitching into a tiny, dark smirk. "It didn't seem like the right time to introduce myself and ask about our date." Ilara put her face in her hands, groaning loudly. "This is a nightmare. I am so sorry. My life is a total mess right now. I completely understand if you want to leave. I'm broke, I'm clumsy, and I just ruined your clothes. You don't want to marry me, just go." Declan watched her. He saw the dark, heavy circles under her eyes. He saw the cheap, worn fabric of her coat. He saw how hard she was trying to hold herself together before she shattered into a million pieces. He reached across the small table and gently pulled her hands away from her face. His long fingers were warm against her cold skin. "I am still sitting here, aren't I?" he asked quietly. "I didn't leave." Ilara looked down at his big hands holding hers, then up at his face. "Why?" "Because you need help," Declan said, his voice dropping low, cutting through the loud noise of the busy cafe. "And I need a wife. My family is pushing me to settle down. They are aggressive. They want me to marry someone they pick, someone from their world. I do not want that. I want someone simple. Someone who will not cause me trouble or try to play games." He looked at her closely, his dark eyes searching hers. Someone who just wants quiet stability. Is that what you want, Ilara? Yes, she whispered instantly, not even thinking about it. Yes, I just want peace, and I need help with my mom. She is sick. Her lungs are failing. I need medical insurance for her. The matching service said you have great company insurance, that a wife gets full benefits. Declan nodded slowly. I do. If we sign the papers today, your mother goes on my plan tomorrow morning. The bills will be paid. You will not have to worry about the money anymore. Ilara felt a hot tear slip down her cold cheek. She couldn't stop it. Just like that, you would do that for a complete stranger. You are not a stranger, he said. He pulled a dry napkin from the metal holder and reached over, gently wiping the tear from her face. His touch was so gentle it actually made her chest hurt. You are the woman who tried to scrub a hole into my chest 30 minutes ago. Ilara let out a wet, broken laugh. I really am sorry about the shirt. I'll add it to your tab, Declan joked softly. He liked her laugh. He liked it a lot. He leaned back in his chair studying her. She was beautiful, even exhausted and damp from the cold rain. Her dark skin glowed against the dull grey light coming from the window. He was a man who controlled everything in his life. He destroyed rival companies. He fired people without blinking. His family was full of rich snakes and liars who only cared about power. But sitting here with Ilara, he felt something heavy and real settle in his chest. Something solid. He wanted to keep her. So, Declan said, his dark eyes locking onto hers, waiting for her answer. Do we have a deal? We get married, you get the insurance to save your mother, and we live a quiet life. Ilara looked at the man across from her. He was too handsome, too calm, and his sweater looked way too expensive for a regular office assistant. A smart girl would walk away. A smart girl would ask a lot more questions before signing her life away. But she was out of time, and her mother was out of breath. Deal, she said, her voice shaking but firm. We get married. The little bell above the coffee shop door chimed loudly as they walked out into the freezing Seattle rain. The wind whipped around the corner of the brick building, throwing cold water directly into Ilara's face. She shivered violently, crossing her arms tight over her thin coat. She expected Declan to walk toward the subway station or maybe pull out keys to a cheap commuter car. Instead, he stepped right to the edge of the busy street and raised his large hand. A yellow city cab pulled over immediately, splashing dirty puddle water against the curb. Declan opened the heavy back door and looked at her. He didn't say a word. He just waited for her to get out of the storm. Ilara hurried forward and slid into the back seat. The cab smelled like old cigarette smoke, wet floor mats and cheap pine air freshener. The heater was blasting hot air directly onto her frozen legs. Declan got in right after her, pulling the door shut with a heavy thud. He took up way too much space in the small car. His broad shoulders pressed against hers, and she could feel the hard heat of his body right through his damp grey sweater. Downtown Courthouse, Declan told the driver. His voice was completely calm, like he was ordering a sandwich instead of going to marry a stranger. You got it, buddy, the driver muttered, pulling back into the heavy city traffic. Ilara stared out the dirty window at the grey buildings passing by. Her stomach twisted into sick, tight knots. What the hell was she doing? She was sitting in a smelly cab with a man she met 20 minutes ago. She didn't know his favorite color. She didn't know his middle name. She only knew that he had health insurance and she had a dying mother. Are you changing your mind? Declan asked softly. Ilara turned her head. He was watching her. His dark eyes didn't miss a single thing. He saw how hard she gripped her cheap purse. He saw the way she chewed on her bottom lip until it was raw. No, she whispered. I'm not changing my mind, I don't want to get in trouble. Is your company going to be mad? Adding a wife to your insurance plan on the first day? Will HR ask questions? Declan almost smiled. He owned the company. He owned HR. If he wanted to burn the entire health insurance department to the ground, he could do it with one phone call. But he kept his face perfectly flat. I handle my own paperwork, he said smoothly. My boss relies on me for everything. They will not ask questions. You just need to sign your name and let me do the rest. Ilara let out a slow, shaky breath. Okay, Declan, I trust you. I don't know why, but I do. The cab stopped in front of a giant, ugly grey building. The concrete steps were cracked and covered in wet leaves. Declan paid the driver with a crisp $50 bill and didn't ask for change. They got out and walked up the steps together. The inside of the courthouse was depressing. The long white ceiling lights buzzed and blinked. The floor was covered in dirty brown tiles. A line of miserable-looking people stood waiting to pay traffic tickets or file for bankruptcy. Declan put his hand flat against the middle of Ilara's back. His touch was firm and heavy. He guided her past the long line and straight toward a glass window that said marriage licenses. An older woman with messy red hair and cheap pink lipstick sat behind the glass. She was typing slowly on a very old computer and chewing a piece of blue gum. "What do you need?" the woman asked without looking up. "A marriage license," Declan said, "and a judge to sign it right now." The woman finally looked up. She looked at Declan's expensive sweater and sharp, handsome face, and then she looked at Ilara's cheap, wet coat and scuffed shoes. She raised one thin eyebrow. "It costs $80 to file and have the magistrate do it same day. You got ID?" "Yes," Declan said. He pulled a sleek black leather wallet from his back pocket. He slid his driver's license under the glass along with a $100 bill. Ilara scrambled to dig through her messy purse. She finally found her ID and pushed it under the glass. Her hands were shaking so bad she dropped it twice. The woman clicked her tongue, snatched the cards and started typing. "Room 4B down the hall," the woman snapped, sliding a piece of thick yellow paper back to them. "The magistrate is eating a sandwich, but he'll marry you if you knock loud enough." They walked down the dark, quiet hallway. Ilara felt like she was walking to her own funeral. Room 4B was a tiny office packed with stacks of dusty legal books. A tired, bald man in a black robe was wiping mustard off his chin with a paper towel. He took the yellow paper from Declan and sighed loudly. "Stand together," the man ordered. "You got rings." "No," Declan said. "Fine, whatever. Do you, Declan, take Ilara to be your legal wife, to have and hold in sickness and health and all that?" Declan turned his body fully toward Ilara. He didn't look at the judge. He looked right down into her tired, terrified brown eyes. The air in the tiny room suddenly felt too thick to breathe. "I do," Declan said. His deep voice rumbled in his chest. He meant it. He really meant it. "And do you, Ilara, take this man to be your husband?" Ilara swallowed hard. She thought about the beep of her mother's heart monitor. She thought about the $30,000. She looked at the sharp line of Declan's jaw and the dark, heavy promise in his eyes. "I do," she whispered. "Great, sign the paper, you're married. Good luck out there," the judge said. He pushed a black pen across his messy desk. Ilara signed her name. The letters looked small and shaky. Declan took the pen from her fingers. His skin brushed against hers, sending a hot shock up her arm. He signed his name with fast, brutal strokes. "It is done," Declan said quietly. He folded the yellow paper and put it in his pocket. They walked back out to the front of the courthouse. The rain was coming down even harder now. Ilara stood under the concrete roof, wrapping her arms around herself. "I have to make a call," Declan said. He pulled a sleek, completely black phone from his pocket. He turned slightly away from her, putting the phone to his ear. "It's me. Process the spousal health coverage right now. Yes, immediately. Vance, Ilara Vance. Her mother is at Seattle General. Clear the entire past due balance and upgrade her room to the private wing. Do it before I hang up." Ilara stared at his back. Upgrade her room, clear the balance. How could a regular assistant give orders like that? Who was he talking to? Declan hung up the phone and turned around. "Call the hospital, check on it." Ilara pulled her cheap phone from her pocket. The screen was cracked in 3 places. She dialed the billing department with shaking thumbs. The phone rang twice before a tired nurse answered. "Seattle General Billing, this is Nancy." "Hi Nancy, this is Ilara Vance. I'm calling about room 314. Marie Vance, I wanted to see if the new insurance went through." She heard the loud clicking of a computer keyboard on the other end. Then the nurse gasped loudly. Oh wow. Yes, Miss Vance. A corporate policy just locked in. The entire $30,000 balance is totally cleared. Actually, the system says we need to move your mother to the VIP wing on the top floor immediately. All future treatments are covered at 100%. Ilara's knees gave out. She didn't mean to fall, but her legs just turned to water. She dropped hard onto the cold, wet concrete. The phone slipped from her hand. "Ilara," Declan yelled. He dropped to his knees right beside her on the dirty ground. He didn't care about the wet dirt ruining his expensive pants. He grabbed her shoulders, his large hands pulling her tight against his chest. "Are you hurt? Look at me." Tears poured down Ilara's face. She pressed her face into his wet shirt and sobbed. The heavy, crushing weight she had carried for 2 whole years was just gone. Her mom was going to live. Her mom was safe. "She's okay," Ilara cried, her voice muffled against his solid chest. "My mom is okay, thank you, damn it, thank you so much." Declan held her. He wrapped his arms all the way around her small, shaking body and held her completely still. He liked the way she felt against him. He liked being the one to fix her broken world. "Breathe, Ilara," he whispered, resting his chin on the top of her wet hair. "You are safe now, you are my wife." They stayed like that for a long time on the dirty courthouse steps. Finally, Ilara pulled back. She wiped her face with the back of her sleeves, embarrassed. She looked like a total mess. "I have to get back to work," she sniffled, picking up her cracked phone. "I am already 2 hours late. My boss is going to kill me." "Take the rest of the day off," Declan ordered. "I can't, I'm just a junior copywriter. If I don't show up, they will fire me. I need the paycheck for rent." Declan's jaw tightened. He wanted to tell her she never had to work another day in her life. He wanted to buy her a penthouse and lock her inside where she would be warm and safe. But she thought he was just an assistant. He had to keep playing the game. "Fine," Declan said, standing up and pulling her to her feet. "Go back to work. I will meet you outside your building at 6 o'clock. We need to figure out our living situation." Ilara nodded. She turned and ran toward the bus stop, her wet coat flapping in the heavy wind. 45 minutes later, Ilara pushed through the heavy glass doors of the marketing department on the 40th floor. She was freezing, dripping wet and completely exhausted. The office was bright white and painfully quiet. All the other copywriters were sitting at their small grey desks, typing fast. Ilara walked to her desk in the corner. She just wanted to sit down and dry off. "Well, look who finally decided to show up," a sharp, nasty voice called out. Ilara froze. She closed her eyes and let out a slow, angry breath. It was Chloe. Chloe stood up from her desk in the center of the room. She was wearing a tight, bright red designer dress and matching high heels. Her blonde hair was perfectly straight. Chloe used to be Ilara's best friend in college, until Chloe decided she liked stepping on people to get ahead. Now, Chloe was a senior copywriter, and she made sure Ilara's life was a living hell every single day. "I took a long lunch, Chloe," Ilara said quietly. She walked to her desk and hung her wet coat over the back of her chair. "HR approved it." "Did they?" Chloe sneered. She walked over, her heels clicking loudly on the hard wood floor. She stopped right in front of Ilara's desk. "Because Mr. Davis came looking for the ad copy for the new perfume launch. He wanted it an hour ago. I had to tell him you were missing." "I finished that copy yesterday," Ilara said, her voice rising just a little bit. "I left the folder right on his desk before I left." "Oh, did you?" Chloe smiled. It was an ugly, cruel smile. "Because he couldn't find it, so I wrote a new one. He loved mine. He said yours was probably trash anyway." Ilara clenched her hands into tight fists. Her fingernails dug hard into her palms. She needed this job. She could not punch Chloe in her perfect fake face. Chloe looked down at Ilara's desk. She reached out and picked up a small picture frame. It was a picture of Ilara and her mother before she got sick. "Put that down," Ilara said. Her voice went dead cold. "You are so pathetic, Ilara," Chloe laughed. "Always crying about your sick mom, always wearing those cheap, ugly clothes. You really think you belong in a place like this?" Chloe let go of the frame. It hit the edge of the metal desk and shattered onto the floor. Small pieces of glass exploded everywhere. Ilara stared at the broken glass. Something inside of her chest snapped. The quiet, scared girl who took everybody's shit was gone. She was a married woman now. She had nothing left to lose. The glass pieces were small and jagged. The wooden frame was cracked right down the middle, splitting her mother's smiling face in half. Ilara just stared at the messy pile on the floor. The loud, busy noises of the marketing office seemed to fade away completely. All she could hear was the blood rushing fast in her own ears. It sounded like a loud, wild river. Chloe laughed. It was a high, thin, annoying sound. "Oops, accidents happen. You should really learn to keep your cheap trash off the company desks, Ilara. Maybe you should clean it up before you cut your cheap shoes." Ilara slowly looked up. Her chest was completely still. The panic and the deep fear that usually lived tight in her throat were just gone. They were totally erased, replaced by something cold, heavy, and extremely dark. She remembered the $30,000. She remembered the VIP hospital room and the beep of the secure heart monitor. She didn't need this job anymore. She didn't need to take Chloe's shit anymore. Pick it up, Ilara said. Her voice was flat, it didn't shake at all. Chloe stopped laughing. She crossed her arms tightly over her bright red designer dress. Excuse me, are you giving me orders now? I said pick it up, Ilara repeated. She took one step forward. She was much shorter than Chloe, but right now she felt 10 feet tall. Are you crazy? Chloe sneered, looking around the bright room. A few other copywriters had stopped typing and were watching them with wide eyes. You pick it up, it's your garbage. And if you don't get back to work right now, I am going to call Mr. Davis and tell him you are threatening a senior employee. He will fire your broke ass on the spot. Ilara didn't blink. She reached out with both hands and grabbed the front of Chloe's expensive dress. Hey, Chloe shrieked, her perfectly lined eyes going wide with sudden raw shock. Let go of me, what the fuck are you doing? Ilara shoved her backward. She pushed with all her strength. Chloe stumbled hard in her tall high heels, her back slamming violently into the heavy metal filing cabinet behind her desk. The loud crash echoed loudly through the entire quiet office. Someone gasped. Listen to me very carefully, you selfish bitch, Ilara whispered, leaning in so close that only Chloe could hear her voice. You do not own me. You do not scare me anymore. You have spent 2 whole years making my life a living hell just because you hate yourself. I am done. I am completely done taking your abuse. I'll call security, Chloe choked out, her face turning bright, ugly red. You are going to jail. Call them, Ilara said coldly. She let go of the expensive dress, smoothing the wrinkled red fabric with a hard, insulting pat. But you won't need to, because I quit. Ilara turned around. She bent down and carefully picked up the photograph from the broken glass. She didn't care about the smashed wooden frame. She wiped a small piece of sharp glass off her mother's smiling face and slid the picture safely into her coat pocket. She grabbed her wet raincoat from the back of her chair. She didn't take her pens. She didn't take her old notebooks. She walked straight toward the heavy glass doors of the department. You can't quit, Chloe yelled, her voice cracking with pure, wild anger and deep embarrassment. The entire office was staring at her right now. You need this money. You'll be begging for your job back by tomorrow. Ilara didn't look back once. She pushed the heavy doors open and let them swing shut behind her. Chloe stood completely frozen against the metal filing cabinet. Her chest heaved up and down. Everyone in the white room was still staring at her. The silence in the office was suffocating. Get back to work, Chloe screamed at the room. Mind your own damn business. The typing started again immediately, fast and very nervous. Chloe walked to her desk and sat down heavily in her chair. Her perfectly manicured hands were shaking with pure toxic rage. Ilara had humiliated her. Ilara, the weak, pathetic girl who couldn't even afford to buy lunch most days, had just slammed her against a cabinet and walked out like she owned the entire building. It made Chloe totally sick to her stomach. You want to play rough, Ilara, Chloe whispered bitterly to herself, pulling her expensive phone from her designer purse. I am going to destroy your entire life. Chloe scrolled fast through her contacts until she found the name Marcus. He was an ex-boyfriend, a shady computer programmer who spent most of his time on the dark web making illegal software. He owed her a huge favor. She typed a message quickly with her shaking thumbs. I need a deepfake video. High quality, I need it by tomorrow morning. Marcus replied 30 seconds later, Who is the target? Chloe smiled. It was an ugly, cruel smile. Ilara Vance. I am sending you a dozen video clips of her giving office presentations so you can map her face and voice perfectly. Make a video of her sitting in a dark room. Have her say she is stealing the secret marketing blueprints for the new perfume launch and selling them to our biggest rival. Make her say she scams men for money to pay for her mother's hospital bills. Make it look completely real. It will cost you, Marcus texted back. I don't care about the money, just do it. Chloe put her phone face down on the desk. Ilara thought she had one today, but by tomorrow morning, Ilara wouldn't just be unemployed and broke. She would be facing federal corporate theft charges and total public ruin. The cold wind whipped down the dark street outside the giant office building. It was exactly 6 o'clock. Ilara stood under the concrete roof, pulling her thin coat tight against her chest. The rain had finally stopped, but the air was freezing. She felt incredibly light but also terrified. She had no job. She was married to a complete stranger. Her life had completely changed in just 6 hours. A sleek, massive black SUV pulled up to the curb right in front of her. The heavy tires hissed loudly against the wet road. The tinted passenger window rolled down slowly. Declan looked out at her from the driver's seat. He had taken off his wet grey sweater. He was wearing a dark, perfectly fitted button-down shirt that hugged his broad, muscular shoulders. "Get in," he said, his deep voice cut right through the cold wind. Ilara opened the heavy door and climbed into the warm leather seat. The car smelled like expensive, spicy cologne and clean new leather. It was a massive upgrade from the smelly, dirty yellow cab they had taken earlier today. "Is this your car?" Ilara asked, her brown eyes going wide as she looked at the glowing digital dashboard. "It is a company car," Declan lied smoothly. He put the car in drive and pulled smoothly away from the wet curb. "My boss lets me use it when I run his errands. How was the rest of your shift?" Ilara looked down at her small hands. "I quit." Declan didn't slam on the brakes. He didn't even turn his head. His large hands just gripped the leather steering wheel a little tighter. "You quit, just like that?" "Yes," Ilara whispered. She felt a sudden, awful wave of panic. What if he was mad? What if he thought she was lazy? "I am sorry, I know we just got married today, I know I need to pull my own weight. But my boss, my senior copywriter Chloe, she is a total nightmare. She broke a picture of my mother today just to be cruel. I couldn't take it anymore. I snapped. I pushed her and I walked out. I will find another job tomorrow, I promise. I can work at a coffee shop or a grocery store until I find another office job." Declan pulled the heavy car up to a red traffic light. He finally turned his handsome head to look at her. His dark, serious eyes were intense, sweeping slowly over her tired face. He saw the genuine, raw fear in her brown eyes. She actually thought he was going to be angry about money. She had no idea she was sitting right next to a billionaire. "Did she hurt you?" Declan asked. His voice was dangerously low. "No," Ilara said quickly. "I just pushed her away, she didn't hurt me." "Good," Declan said. The light turned green and he pressed his heavy boot on the gas pedal. He made a mental note to have Chloe fired, blacklisted from the entire industry and completely ruined by noon tomorrow. No one touched his new wife. "You do not need to find a new job, Ilara. Not unless you want to. I make enough money to take care of us." "But you are an assistant," she said, frowning slightly. "Living in Seattle is really expensive." "My boss pays me very well to keep my mouth shut and handle his big problems," Declan said quietly. It was technically the truth. "Speaking of living in Seattle, we need to go home." "Where is home?" Ilara asked. "You will see." 20 minutes later, Declan drove the giant SUV into a private underground parking garage beneath a massive, glittering glass tower. The building was in the most expensive part of the whole city. Ilara felt completely out of place as they walked together to the private elevator. Declan pulled a smooth black keycard from his pants pocket and tapped it against the elevator panel. The doors slid closed, and the machine shot upward, fast and totally silent. "Declan," Ilara said, her voice shaking slightly. "Where are we? This building is for millionaires." "My boss owns the penthouse," Declan said. He leaned back against the wall of the elevator, watching her nervous, pretty face. "He travels for business almost the entire year. He stays in Europe mostly. He lets me live here to watch the place and keep it clean. It is part of my compensation package." Ilara let out a slow, amazed breath. "Wow, he must really trust you a lot." "He does." The elevator doors slid open directly into the main living room. Ilara gasped out loud. The place was massive. The floors were dark, shining wood. The furniture was sleek, modern, and looked incredibly comfortable. But the most amazing part was the windows. The entire back wall of the huge apartment was just clear glass, looking out over the beautiful, glittering night lights of the Seattle skyline. "This is beautiful," Ilara whispered, stepping slowly onto the thick, soft grey rug. "Are you hungry?" Declan asked, taking his keys out of his pocket and dropping them loudly onto a marble counter in the huge kitchen. "I can order some food. We did not get to eat anything on our date today." "I am starving," Ilara admitted honestly. Her stomach gave a loud, embarrassing rumble. Declan actually smiled. It was a small, quick thing, but it changed his whole hard face. He looked softer, less dangerous. "I will order steak. Go take a hot shower. The master bedroom is down the hall to the right. There are clean towels in the bathroom." Ilara nodded. She walked down the long, quiet hallway, feeling like she was walking inside a dream. She opened the door to the master bedroom. It was bigger than her entire old apartment. The bed was enormous, covered in dark grey sheets and thick white blankets. She walked into the attached bathroom and turned on the shower. The water was instantly hot. She stripped off her cheap, damp work clothes and stepped under the heavy spray of water. For the first time in 2 long years, she closed her eyes and just let her tired muscles relax. Her mother was completely safe. She didn't have to deal with Chloe anymore. She had a husband who seemed kind, steady, and highly protective. Everything was finally going to be okay. When Ilara walked back into the living room, she was wearing a thick white bathrobe she had found hanging in the bathroom. It swallowed her small frame completely. Her dark hair was wet and curly, falling perfectly around her clean face. Declan was sitting on the large leather couch. He had ordered fast delivery. 2 massive plates of steak, mashed potatoes, and roasted vegetables were sitting on the low glass coffee table. He looked up the second she walked in. His dark eyes locked onto her, tracking her every single movement. The air in the room suddenly felt very heavy and very hot. "Food is here," he said softly. Ilara sat down on the other end of the big couch. She pulled her bare feet up under her and grabbed a warm plate. "Thank you for this, Declan, all of it. The insurance, the hot food, letting me stay here. I know this isn't a real marriage. I know we just did this for fast convenience, but I appreciate it." Declan cut a piece of his bloody steak. "Who said it wasn't a real marriage?" Ilara froze with her heavy silver fork halfway to her mouth. She looked right at him. "What do you mean? We agreed to a blind date flash marriage for stability. You needed to stop your pushy family from bothering you, and I needed the medical coverage fast." Declan leaned forward. He rested his elbows heavily on his knees, looking right into her wide brown eyes. "I meant what I said at the courthouse, Ilara. I do not do things halfway. We are legally bound. You are my wife. I will protect you. I will provide for you. And I expect us to act like a real couple. I want your total loyalty. I want your honesty. And eventually I want this to be very real." Ilara swallowed hard. Her heart started beating very fast against her ribs. "You barely know me at all." "I know enough," Declan said. His voice was smooth, dark, and deep. "I know you work very hard. I know you love your sick mother enough to marry a total stranger to save her. I know you are brave enough to stand up to your bullies when you finally have a safety net." He paused, his dark gaze dropping down to her soft lips for just a second before coming back up to her eyes. "And I know I really like looking at you." Ilara felt a bright blush spread fast across her dark cheeks. She looked down at her plate. I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," Declan told her, leaning back slowly against the leather cushions. "Just eat your dinner. We have plenty of time to figure this out." They ate in quiet, comfortable silence. The city lights sparkled through the massive glass windows. It was the most peaceful night Ilara had experienced in years. She felt completely safe. But the peace did not last. The sun came up bright and extremely cold over Seattle the next morning. Ilara woke up in the massive, soft bed. She was alone in the big room. Declan had told her last night he usually slept early and woke up long before the sun. She stretched her arms, feeling fully rested for the first time in her life. She reached over to the bedside table and grabbed her cracked phone to check the time. Her screen was completely filled with angry notifications, dozens of missed calls, hundreds of text messages. Her stomach dropped instantly. The cold, heavy feeling of panic rushed right back into her tight throat. She sat up fast, her fingers shaking as she opened her messages. They were all from people at her old office. "You are a monster. The police are going to arrest you, Ilara. How could you do this?" Ilara couldn't breathe. She clicked on a blue link someone had sent her. It opened an internet browser. It was a video. The title of the video was printed in bold black letters. "Junior copywriter Ilara Vance admits to corporate espionage and scamming men for money." Ilara pressed play. Her hands shook violently. The video showed her sitting in a dimly lit room. It was her exact face, it was her exact voice. The digital version of her smiled cruelly at the camera. "I don't care about this company," the fake Ilara said on the bright screen. "I already downloaded the entire blueprint for the new perfume launch. Our rival company is paying me 50 grand for it. It is so easy to play the weak victim. I just tell these rich men my mom is sick and they throw big money at me. They are all so stupid." "No," Ilara whispered, hot tears instantly filling her brown eyes. No, that isn't me, I didn't say that." The bedroom door opened fast. Declan walked in. He was wearing a sharp, dark business suit. He looked absolutely furious. He held his own black phone tight in his large hand. "Get dressed," Declan said. His voice was completely hard. The gentle, quiet man from last night was totally gone. He sounded like a ruthless general preparing for a bloody war. My security team just found the video. It is trending all over the city. Declan, I swear to you, Ilara cried out, throwing the heavy blankets off her legs. I swear on my mother's life that is not me, it's a fake. Chloe did this to me. She promised to ruin me. I know it is a fake, Declan snapped. He walked over quickly and grabbed her bare shoulders, forcing her to look up at him. I know you didn't do it, but the police are already at your old office building. We are leaving right now. I am taking you to my private lawyers. They will fix this mess. Ilara nodded quickly, tears spilling down her dark cheeks. She grabbed her clothes and got dressed as fast as she could. They ran out of the apartment together and down to the private garage. Declan shoved her into the passenger seat of the black SUV and got right behind the wheel. He slammed his heavy foot on the gas. The massive truck shot out of the garage and onto the busy, wet city streets. We are going to find the person who made this fake video, Declan growled, his big hands gripping the steering wheel tight. And I am going to destroy their entire life. Nobody frames my wife. Ilara gripped the door handle hard, her heart pounding. She looked at Declan. He was so angry, but he fully believed her. He was fighting for her. But as Declan sped through the green light at the busy intersection, a massive, heavy delivery truck came speeding down the cross street. The truck did not stop for its red light. It didn't even slow down. It was moving way too fast. Ilara turned her head just in time to see the giant metal grille of the massive truck right outside her window. Declan, she screamed. Declan violently yanked the steering wheel, throwing his right arm across Ilara's chest to protect her. The sound of the impact was completely deafening. The world flipped completely upside down. The violent crunch of heavy metal screaming against metal tore through the air, so loud it felt like it ripped Ilara's eardrums right down the middle. The giant delivery truck slammed directly into the side of the SUV, but the brutal, crushing blow never reached Ilara. Declan's massive body crashed over hers, his thick arms wrapping tight around her head and pulling her down hard into his solid chest just as every single window in the car exploded. Thousands of sharp glass pieces rained down on them like tiny, biting teeth. The heavy SUV spun wildly across the wet asphalt, smashing into a concrete street lamp before finally coming to a dead, smoking stop. Then there was nothing but dark, heavy silence. Ilara could not breathe. The air was completely knocked out of her lungs. She smelled hot oil, burnt rubber, and the thick, salty, metallic smell of fresh blood. She opened her eyes slowly. Everything was blurry and spinning. She was trapped under Declan's heavy weight. Declan, she whispered. Her voice was just a broken rasp, her throat burned. Declan, wake up, please. He didn't move. He didn't make a sound. Panic exploded in her chest, hot and wild. She pushed against his wide shoulders with her shaking hands. He was totally limp. She managed to slide her head out from under his arm and looked at his face. Her heart stopped cold. A deep, jagged cut was bleeding heavily on the side of his head, soaking his dark hair in bright red blood. His eyes were closed shut. He looked pale, too pale. Help, Ilara screamed, her voice finally breaking out of her dry throat. Somebody help us, please, he is bleeding. Oh shit, Declan, stay with me, just stay with me. She pressed her shaking hands hard against his head, trying to stop the blood from flowing down his face. Her fingers were instantly covered in sticky, hot red. The distant high wail of police sirens started to cut through the rain outside. People were running toward the crushed car, shouting loudly. But Ilara couldn't hear their words. The edges of her vision turned a fuzzy, dark grey. The pain in her own chest suddenly flared up like a burning fire, sharp and deep. She looked at Declan's still, quiet face one last time before the dark grey swallowed her completely, pulling her down into a deep, empty black hole. The sharp, stinging smell of chemical bleach and strong medicine woke her up. Ilara opened her eyes slowly. The light in the room was bright white and painfully harsh. She blinked a few times, trying to clear the heavy blur from her vision. She was lying in a narrow hospital bed. A machine beside her beeped in a slow, steady rhythm. She tried to sit up, but a hot, stabbing pain shot right through her ribs, forcing her back down onto the thin pillow with a sharp gasp. I would not move if I were you. You have 2 broken ribs and a minor concussion. The voice was cold, sharp, and completely empty of any kindness. Ilara turned her head slowly. A woman was sitting in a stiff plastic chair in the corner of the white room. She looked to be in her late 50s, wearing an incredibly expensive dark grey business suit. Her hair was perfectly styled, and her dark eyes were hard as stones. She held an expensive leather purse perfectly still in her lap. "Who are you?" Ilara asked, her voice dry and cracking. "Where is Declan? Is he alive?" The woman stood up. Her high heels clicked sharply against the clean hospital floor. She walked over and stopped right at the foot of Ilara's bed, looking down at her like she was a disgusting bug on the sidewalk. "My son is alive," the woman said smoothly. "No thanks to you." Ilara felt the room spin. "Your son, you are Declan's mother." "I am Elena Ryu," the woman stated. "And you are the cheap, pathetic little scam artist who tricked my son into a fake marriage yesterday." "I didn't trick him," Ilara said, her hands grabbing the thin hospital blanket. "He asked me. We made a deal. Wait, you said your name is Ryu. Declan told me he was just an assistant. He told me he worked for the man who owned the penthouse." Elena let out a short, cruel laugh. It sounded like ice cracking. "Declan owns the penthouse. Declan owns the entire building. He is the CEO of Ryu Global. He is a billionaire, you stupid girl. And he was supposed to marry the daughter of a shipping tycoon next month. Instead, he lost his mind and married a broke, desperate copywriter in a dirty courthouse." Ilara stared at her. Her brain could not process the words. A billionaire? The man who bought her a cheap steak dinner, the man who gently wiped a tear from her face in a crowded coffee shop, owned half the city. It didn't make any sense. He lied to her. He lied to her about everything. "I didn't know," Ilara whispered, hot tears filling her eyes. "I swear to you I didn't know he had money like that. I just needed the medical insurance to save my mom. That was the only reason I said yes." "I know exactly why you said yes," Elena snapped, stepping closer to the bed. "I know everything about you, Ilara Vance. I know about your sick mother. I know about your pathetic little life. And I know about the video circulating the internet this morning. The one where you admit to stealing corporate secrets and scamming rich men to pay for your mother's bills." Ilara's breath caught in her throat. "That video is fake. A girl at my office, Chloe, she made it because she hates me. Declan knows it is fake. He was taking me to his lawyers to fix it right before the truck hit us." "The truck," Elena said softly. A dark, twisted smile touched the corners of her painted lips. "Yes, the truck was very unfortunate. The driver simply lost control on the wet roads. It was a tragic accident, but it actually worked out perfectly for my family." Ilara felt a sudden, freezing cold chill run all the way down her spine. She looked at Elena's calm, smiling face. The truck didn't lose control. It didn't even try to stop. "You did it," Ilara breathed, her voice shaking with pure horror. "You hired that truck. You tried to kill me." "Don't be dramatic," Elena said, waving her hand like she was swatting away a fly. "I simply wanted to send a very loud message to my son that his little game was over. I didn't expect him to throw his own body over yours to protect you. That was foolish of him. He hit his head very hard." "I want to see him," Ilara demanded, trying to push herself up again despite the blinding pain in her ribs. "I want to see my husband right now." "You can't," Elena said flatly, "and he does not want to see you." "You're lying." "I am telling the truth," Elena said, crossing her arms. "The swelling in Declan's brain caused a traumatic injury to his memory center. He has severe amnesia. He lost the last 2 years of his memories. He does not remember moving to Seattle. He does not remember taking over the company. And he certainly does not remember you, Ilara." Ilara froze. The tears spilling down her cheeks suddenly felt like ice water. No, that isn't possible." "It is a medical fact," Elena smiled. It was a wicked, happy smile. "When he woke up an hour ago, he was very confused. So as his loving mother, I had to fill in the blanks for him. I told him all about his new wife. I showed him the video of you bragging about stealing our company secrets. I told him you were a gold-digging whore who targeted him, ruined his life, and caused the car crash just to get a payout." "You evil bitch," Ilara hissed, pure hatred finally burning away the fear in her chest. Elena reached into her expensive purse and pulled out a thick stack of white papers and a heavy black pen. She tossed them carelessly onto Ilara's lap. "These are divorce papers," Elena said. Her voice dropped low, becoming a deadly threat. "You are going to sign them right now. You are going to walk away with nothing. If you sign them quietly, I will allow your mother to stay on the company health insurance until she recovers. If you refuse to sign them, I will cut her coverage today. She will be kicked out of the hospital within the hour, and I will have my lawyers hand that fake video over to the police. You will go to federal prison for corporate theft, and your mother will die in a cheap public clinic." Ilara looked down at the papers on her lap. Her hands shook violently. She was completely trapped. Elena Ryu held all the power, all the money, and all the strings. If she fought back right now, her mother would die. Sign the papers, Ilara. Go back to your miserable, quiet little life. Ilara picked up the heavy black pen. Her knuckles turned pure white as she gripped it. She thought about the beep of her mother's heart monitor. She thought about the $30,000. She didn't have a choice. She pressed the pen to the paper and signed her name on the bottom line. It was over. The shortest marriage in history. Elena snatched the papers back instantly, looking very pleased. Smart girl. Now get out of my hospital. You have 10 minutes before I call security to throw you onto the street. Elena turned and walked out of the room, leaving the door wide open. Ilara sat alone in the quiet white room. Her ribs screamed in pain. Her head throbbed. She was completely broken. She slowly swung her legs over the edge of the bed. Her bare feet hit the cold floor. She was wearing a thin paper hospital gown. She found her dirty, torn street clothes folded in a plastic bag on the chair. She changed slowly, gritting her teeth against the sharp pain in her chest with every single movement. She walked out into the busy hospital hallway. Doctors and nurses rushed past her, ignoring the small, bruised girl limping against the wall. She was supposed to walk to the elevator. She was supposed to leave the building and go back to her empty apartment. But her feet stopped moving. She looked down the long hallway. At the very end, 2 massive men in dark black suits stood outside a private VIP room. That was Declan's room. Ilara's hands slowly curled into tight fists. The old Ilara, the weak girl who let Chloe walk all over her, the girl who cried in coffee shops, would have run away. She would have taken the loss and hidden in the dark. But the crash had broken something deep inside of her, and something entirely new was bleeding out. She wasn't going to run, not without seeing his face one last time. She walked straight toward the heavy wooden door. The 2 giant guards stepped in front of her instantly, putting their massive hands up to block her path. "You can't be here," the first guard barked, looking down at her bruised face. "Let her in." Elena Ryu stepped out from inside the room. She looked at Ilara with deep amusement. "Let the trash come inside. It will be good for her to hear it directly from him. It will make sure she never comes back." The guards stepped aside. Ilara walked slowly past Elena and stepped into the large, luxurious hospital room. Declan was sitting up in the wide bed. His head was wrapped in thick white bandages. He looked tired, but his broad chest was still massive under the thin hospital shirt. He was looking out the large window at the grey Seattle rain. "Declan," Ilara whispered, her voice cracked badly. He turned his head slowly. He looked at her, really looked at her, but the warm, dark, heavy heat that was always in his eyes when he looked at her was completely gone. His eyes were totally dead. They were cold, flat, and filled with deep, sharp disgust. "So you're the rat," Declan said. His deep voice didn't hold a single drop of kindness. It was like getting hit with a bucket of freezing water. Ilara took a step forward, her heart breaking into a million tiny pieces. "Declan, please, it's me. I know you don't remember, but I am not a scammer. Your mother is lying to you. We made a deal. You wanted to help me." Declan let out a harsh, cruel sound. "Help you? I saw the video. You are a fucking thief. You found out who I was, you played the weak, pathetic victim, and you trapped me. You caused this crash because you knew I was going to turn you over to the police." "No," Ilara cried, tears finally falling down her bruised face again. "That is not true. You threw yourself over me. You saved my life." "I wouldn't save a piece of shit on the bottom of my shoe," Declan spit out, his jaw tight with pure anger. "I don't know how you tricked me into signing that paper, but it's done now. You are divorced. You are nothing to me. If I ever see your ugly face near my family or my company again, I will not let my mother handle it. I will personally destroy you. Get out of my room." Ilara stared at him. The man who gently wiped her tears, the man who promised to protect her, was dead. This man was a cold, ruthless monster, poisoned by his mother's sick lies. "Get out," Declan ordered again, turning his face away from her. Elena smiled brightly from the corner of the room. "You heard him, trash, leave." Ilara didn't say another word. She turned around and walked out of the room. She walked past the guards. She walked to the elevator. She pressed the lobby button. When she stepped out of the hospital and onto the cold, wet Seattle sidewalk, the freezing rain immediately soaked her clothes. She stood there for a long time, letting the cold water wash the dry blood off her hands. She thought about her mother, safe in the VIP wing because of a contract she had just signed away. She thought about Chloe laughing in the office. She thought about Elena Ryu's cruel smile. And she thought about the absolute cold hatred in Declan's eyes. Ilara stopped crying. The tears just dried up completely, replaced by a dark, heavy, boiling heat in the dead center of her chest. She had spent her whole life letting people step on her neck because she was poor, desperate, and alone. But she wasn't that girl anymore. They wanted a gold-digging monster who ruined lives. Fine, she would show them exactly what a monster looked like. She pulled her cracked phone from her wet pocket. She found the number for Marcus, the shady computer programmer Chloe used to make the deepfake. Chloe had bragged about him once at a company party. Ilara pressed dial. Yeah, a lazy voice answered. Marcus, Ilara said perfectly calmly. My name is Ilara Vance. You made a video of me yesterday. I am not calling to report you to the police. I am calling to hire you. I need you to find every dirty, illegal secret hidden inside Ryu Global servers. And I need you to teach me how to burn an entire family of billionaires straight to the fucking ground. The rain soaked right through Ilara's cheap clothes, sticking the wet fabric tightly to her bruised skin. She held her cracked phone hard against her ear. On the other end of the line, Marcus let out a low, rough laugh. It sounded like dirty metal scraping together. Burn a family of billionaires to the ground, Marcus said slowly. Listen, lady, I don't know what kind of drugs they gave you at the hospital, but Ryu Global is huge. They have security systems that cost more than my entire life. If I even try to knock on their digital front door, their guys will track my computer and break my legs by midnight. I make fake videos for jealous office girls. I don't start wars with the kings of Seattle. You do if the price is right, Ilara said. Her voice was totally dead. No fear, no begging. You don't have any money, Marcus sneered. Chloe told me all about you. You are the broke girl who cries in the break room because she can't buy lunch. You can't afford my time. Chloe is a stupid girl who plays small games, Ilara said, wiping the freezing rain from her eyes. I just walked out of a VIP hospital room. I was married to the CEO of Ryu Global for 24 hours. His mother just forced me to sign divorce papers to keep my own mother alive. They think I'm a stupid, poor girl who will just run away and disappear. Marcus stopped laughing. The phone line went totally quiet, except for the heavy sound of him breathing. You were married to Declan Ryu? Marcus asked. His voice was suddenly very tight and nervous. Yes, Ilara said. And his mother, Elena Ryu, runs a lot of dark money. Billionaires always have dirty accounts to hide their cash from the government. I know they do. If you help me break into their servers, I am not going to pay you a cheap hourly fee. I am going to give you 20% of whatever we steal from her hidden accounts. Millions, Marcus. We are going to take millions. Marcus was quiet for a long time. The heavy Seattle wind howled down the empty street, throwing cold water against Ilara's legs. Meet me at the old shipping yard by the docks, Marcus finally said. Warehouse 4. If you are lying to me, I will leave you in a trash dump. I will be there in an hour, Ilara said. She hung up the phone and shoved it into her wet pocket. She looked up at the giant, shining glass tower of the hospital one last time. She didn't feel any sadness for the man inside. She only felt a burning, violent need to make all of them pay. If you are loving this massive change in Ilara from a scared girl to a totally ruthless woman, do me a massive favor and drop a like on this video right now. It really helps the algorithm push more gritty revenge stories straight to your feed. I have to ask you guys, what do you think Ilara should do first to test out her new hacker? Should she destroy Chloe's life to get some fast practice, or go straight for the evil mother-in-law? Let me know your evil plans in the comments below. And if you are hooked on this dark romance and want to see Ilara get her husband back, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single part. Now let's get back to the revenge. Ilara walked the entire way to the docks. She didn't have any money for a cab and her bus pass was sitting on her old desk at the marketing office. Her wet shoes slapped hard against the dirty pavement. Her broken ribs sent hot, stabbing pain through her chest with every single step she took. She didn't stop. The physical pain actually felt good. It kept her awake. It kept the dark fire burning deep in her stomach. The shipping yard was completely dark. Massive metal containers were stacked 10 feet high, making deep black shadows in the rain. She found warehouse 4. The heavy metal door was rusted shut at the bottom. She pulled it open with both hands, the metal screaming with a loud, ugly squeak. The inside smelled like old stale coffee, cheap cigarette smoke, and hot computer parts. The massive room was mostly empty, except for a large folding table right in the middle. 4 giant computer screens glowed brightly in the dark. A man sat in a rolling chair in front of the screens. He was thin, wearing a dirty black hoodie and chewing on a clear plastic straw. "You look like total shit," Marcus said, spinning his chair around to look at her. Ilara walked forward, stepping over a pile of thick black wires on the concrete floor. "I was just in a massive car crash, the crash Elena Ryu paid for." Marcus looked at the dark purple bruises on her face and the way she held her arm tight across her ribs. He spit the plastic straw onto the floor. "You are actually serious? You want to go after the Ryu family?" "I want to ruin them," Ilara said, stopping right in front of his dirty table. "But I have to start small. I need you to prove you are actually good at this. I need you to fix the mess you made this morning." Marcus frowned, crossing his arms over his chest. "The deepfake video, that was a digital masterpiece. It took me 3 hours to map your voice perfectly." "It was very good," Ilara admitted flatly. "But now you are going to delete it from every single server in the city, and then you are going to make a brand new video, a video of Chloe." Marcus leaned back, a slow, dirty grin spreading across his face. "Oh, I see you want payback." "I want her destroyed," Ilara said, looking right into his eyes. "Chloe uses the company credit card to buy her expensive designer dresses. I know she does. She bragged about it once when she was drunk at a party. I want you to pull the real bank records from the marketing department. I want you to send those records to Mr. Davis, the head boss, and directly to the local police. And then I want you to hack Chloe's social media accounts, all of them." Marcus started typing very fast on his keyboard. The screens flashed with bright lines of green code. "You want me to lock her out of her pages?" "No," Ilara said smoothly. "I want you to post a video. Take a clip of her face, map it perfectly, and make her say she is sleeping with the married VP of sales to get her promotions. Make her brag about stealing the company money. Make her tag the VP's wife in the post." Marcus stopped typing. He looked up at Ilara with wide, shocked eyes. "Damn, that is ice cold. That will completely ruin her entire career. The VP's wife is a crazy rich woman who sues everybody. She will bury Chloe alive." "Chloe broke a picture of my dying mother and laughed right in my face," Ilara said, her voice dropping down to a dangerous whisper. "Do it." Marcus turned back to his screens. His fingers flew across the plastic keys. "Give me 20 minutes. I already have all of Chloe's passwords from when I made your video. She uses the name of her stupid little dog for everything. Basic bitch." Ilara stood in the dark, watching the screens blink. She wrapped her wet coat tighter around her shivering body. She was freezing, but she didn't care. She was finally taking control of her own life. 20 minutes later, Marcus hit the enter key with a loud smack. "Done. The financial records are sitting in the police department's digital inbox right now, and the fake video just went live on all her feeds." Ilara pulled her cracked phone from her pocket. She opened the social media app. Right at the top of her feed was a brand new video of Chloe. The digital Chloe was sitting at a fancy restaurant, drinking expensive wine and laughing. "Of course I used the company card," the fake Chloe said clearly. "Mr. Davis is too stupid to check the accounts, and the VP of sales, he literally begs me to stay late in his office. His wife is so ugly, he buys me whatever I want just to look at me." Ilara watched the comments start rolling in instantly. People were shocked. The marketing department group chat started blowing up with hundreds of messages a second. Someone said the police were already walking into the office building. Chloe's life was officially over. "Good," Ilara said. She didn't smile, she just put her phone away. "Now that I know you are not totally useless, we need to focus on the real target." Marcus rubbed his tired eyes. "Elena Ryu is not Chloe. She does not use her dog's name for a password. Ryu Global has a military-grade firewall. I can't just hack in and steal millions of dollars. It doesn't work like that outside of stupid action movies." "I know," Ilara said, pulling up a heavy metal chair and sitting down slowly to protect her broken ribs. "We are not going to hack through the front door. We are going to find a back door." "What back door?" Marcus asked, annoyed. "Declan's family is very traditional," Ilara explained, staring at the bright screens. "His mother controls everything behind the scenes, but she uses shell companies to move her dirty money around. When I was at the office, we did a massive marketing campaign for a small real estate firm called Blackwood Holdings. The budget was insane. $50 million for a tiny firm nobody had ever heard of. I thought it was a billing mistake. Now I know it was Elena." Marcus quickly typed the name into a search bar. "Blackwood Holdings, okay, I see it. It is registered in a totally different state. The CEO is a guy named Thomas Vance. Ilara froze, the air in her lungs stopped completely. What did you just say? Marcus looked at her confused. Thomas Vance, that is the name on the legal documents. Why? Ilara's hands started shaking again. Thomas Vance was her father. Her father who walked out on her and her mother 15 years ago. Her father who claimed he was totally broke and couldn't pay a single dollar of child support when her mom first got sick. That is my father, Ilara whispered. Marcus stopped chewing on his lip. Your dad runs a $50 million shell company for the Ryu family. The dark pieces of the puzzle suddenly slammed together in Ilara's mind. Elena Ryu said she knew everything about Ilara's pathetic life. Elena knew exactly who Ilara was when Declan brought her to the hospital. It wasn't just random bad luck. Ilara's own father was working for the woman who tried to kill her today. Pull up everything you can find on Thomas Vance, Ilara ordered, her voice shaking with pure, violent rage. I want his home address. I want his bank accounts. I want to know exactly where he sleeps. Marcus typed furiously. A few seconds later, a bright picture popped up on the center screen. It was an older man with graying hair, wearing a very expensive suit and standing next to a brand new silver sports car. He looked incredibly healthy and incredibly rich. He lives in a massive mansion in Bellevue, Marcus read off the screen. Gated community, private security guards, the guy is totally loaded, Ilara. Ilara stared at the picture of the man who left her mother to die in a public hospital. Her mother's medical bills were crushing them, and he was buying sports cars with Elena Ryu's dirty money. The betrayal cut so deep, it almost made her throw up on the concrete floor. He sold us out, Ilara whispered to herself. He probably helped Elena set up the crash to get rid of me before I found out the absolute truth. Ilara stood up from the metal chair. The pain in her ribs was totally gone, replaced by a massive surge of pure, hot adrenaline. Marcus, print out his daily schedule. I want to know exactly when he leaves that gated community. He has a standing reservation at a high-end country club every morning at 8, Marcus said, clicking on a private calendar file. He plays golf and eats a fancy breakfast alone. But listen to me, Ilara. You can't just walk up to this guy. He is directly connected to Elena. If you spook him, they will send real killers after you, not just a crazy truck driver. I am not going to spook him, Ilara said coldly. I am going to kidnap him. Marcus laughed nervously. Kidnap him? You weigh 100 pounds and you have broken ribs. How the hell are you going to kidnap a rich guy out of a country club? I am not going to drag him into a van, Ilara said, grabbing a black marker from the table. I am going to get into his car. Rich men like him, they think they are totally untouchable. They never lock their doors when they valet their cars at the club. She looked down at Marcus. I need you to buy me a cheap, unregistered gun from the dark web, right now. Marcus shook his head fast, pushing his chair away from her. No way, I don't deal weapons, that is a federal crime. I sit behind a keyboard, I don't do real guns. Ilara walked around the table and grabbed the front of Marcus's dirty hoodie. She pulled him close, ignoring the sharp pain in her chest. You are in this now. You just helped me frame an executive at my old company. If I go down, I am telling the police exactly where you live. You buy the gun, or I burn you down right alongside them. Marcus stared into her dark, empty eyes. He swallowed hard. She wasn't bluffing at all. The desperate, crying girl was completely dead. This woman was a total monster. Okay, Marcus choked out. Okay, fine, I can get a drop made in 2 hours, but it will cost $500, you don't have any cash. Ilara reached into her wet coat pocket. She pulled out the only valuable thing she had left in the entire world, the small, thin gold chain her mother had given her on her 18th birthday. It was the only real jewelry she owned. She dropped the gold chain right onto the keyboard. Pawn it, get the gun, and find me a clean change of clothes. Tomorrow morning I am going to pay my dear father a visit. The sun did not really come up the next morning. The sky just turned a lighter shade of ugly, wet grey. Ilara sat on a broken wooden crate in the corner of Marcus's freezing warehouse. She hadn't slept for a single minute. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the massive front grille of the delivery truck coming right at her window, and then she saw the dead, cold hatred in Declan's dark eyes. She kept her eyes wide open. Marcus walked over to her. He looked exhausted, his face pale in the dim light of the computer screens. He tossed a black plastic shopping bag onto her lap. It hit her legs with a heavy, solid thud. Everything you asked for, Marcus mumbled, crossing his arms and shivering. There is a cheap black tracksuit in there, and the other thing, it cost me exactly $500, just like I said. The safety is on, don't be an idiot with it. Ilara opened the plastic bag. She pulled out the black sweatpants and the matching hooded sweatshirt. At the very bottom of the bag was a heavy piece of dark metal. She reached in and pulled the gun out. It was totally cold against her fingers. It felt extremely heavy, way heavier than it looked in the movies. She had never touched a real weapon before in her entire life, but her hands didn't shake at all. "Does it have bullets?" she asked quietly. "Yes," Marcus sighed, rubbing his tired eyes. "The clip is full. Are you really going to do this, Ilara? Because once you point a gun at a rich man in broad daylight, you can never go back to your normal life. You become a real criminal." "My normal life is completely dead," Ilara said flatly. "Elena Ryu killed it yesterday. Now I am just returning the favor." She stood up and walked into a small, dirty bathroom in the back of the warehouse. She stripped off her wet, ruined work clothes. The bruises on her ribs were dark purple and almost black in the center. Every time she took a deep breath, heart pain shot straight through her chest. She carefully put on the black tracksuit. It was slightly too big, but it was dry and warm. She pulled her thick, dark curls back into a tight ponytail and put the heavy gun inside the deep front pocket of the sweatshirt. When she walked back out, Marcus was holding a set of keys. "I borrowed my neighbor's old car," Marcus said. "I'll drive you to Bellevue, but I am dropping you 2 blocks away from the country club and then I am leaving. I am not getting caught sitting in a getaway car." "That is fine," Ilara said. "Let's go." The drive across the city bridge took 40 minutes. The closer they got to Bellevue, the more the world changed. The dirty, wet concrete of the city turned into smooth, clean roads lined with massive green trees. The houses were huge, sitting far back from the street behind tall iron gates. Ilara stared out the window. This was where her father lived. While her mother was choking on her own failing lungs in a dirty public hospital room, Thomas Vance was sleeping in a mansion and driving a silver sports car. The deep, hot anger in her stomach twisted into something sharp and incredibly violent. Marcus pulled the rusty car over to the side of a quiet, tree-lined street. "The club is right around that corner. The valet parking lot is in the back. Good luck, Ilara, seriously, don't get killed." "Go back to the warehouse and stay near your computers," Ilara ordered smoothly. "I will call you when I have his bank tokens. Be ready to drain the accounts the second I give you the signal." Marcus nodded slowly. He looked a little terrified of her. Ilara opened the door and stepped out into the freezing morning fog. She didn't look back as Marcus drove away. She pulled the black hood over her head and walked down the wet sidewalk. The country club was massive. It looked like a castle made of perfectly clean white stone. High iron fences surrounded the property, but Ilara didn't try to go through the front gate. She walked around to the side, where a thick line of tall green bushes hid a small dirt path used by the landscaping crew. She slipped through the bushes, the wet leaves slapping hard against her face. She found the parking lot easily. It was packed with the most expensive cars in the world: black SUVs, bright red Italian sports cars, and massive luxury sedans. The morning fog was still thick, hiding her small figure as she walked quietly between the shiny metal bodies. She looked at every single row. Finally, near the very back of the lot, she saw it. The brand new silver Porsche. Ilara walked up to the car. She looked around. The parking lot was completely empty. The rich men were all inside eating their expensive breakfasts and playing golf. She reached out and pulled the handle of the back passenger door. It clicked and the heavy door swung open smoothly. Ilara almost laughed. Marcus was right. Rich people thought they were completely untouchable. They didn't even lock their doors. She climbed into the tiny back seat. It was a sports car, so there was barely any room for her legs. She curled her small body tightly into a ball on the floorboards, hiding behind the tall driver's seat. The instant she curled up, her broken ribs screamed in pure agony. A hot, blinding flash of white pain covered her eyes. She bit down hard on her own lip to stop herself from making a sound. The sudden taste of warm copper blood filled her mouth. She squeezed her eyes shut and forced herself to take slow, shallow breaths. The pain slowly faded into a dull, heavy ache. The car smelled like rich, expensive leather and very strong mint. Ilara lay completely still in the dark. She reached into her pocket and wrapped her cold fingers tightly around the heavy handle of the gun. She waited for a very long time. The cold from the car floor slowly seeped through her clothes, freezing her bones, but she didn't move a single muscle. Almost 2 hours later, she heard loud, heavy footsteps hitting the wet pavement outside. Ilara tightened her grip on the gun. A loud electronic beep echoed in the quiet lot. The driver's side door pulled open. A man sat down heavily in the front seat. The car bounced slightly under his weight. He slammed the door shut, cutting off the cold wind outside. Ilara stayed perfectly still on the floor. The man pressed a button, and the massive engine roared to life. It sounded like a wild, angry animal. The heater immediately kicked on, blowing warm air across the leather seats. The man pulled a phone from his pocket and dialed a number. He put it on the speaker. It rang twice. "Yes, Mr. Vance," a smooth, professional woman's voice answered through the car speakers. "Tell Elena the downtown property is completely secured," Thomas Vance said. His voice was deep and completely relaxed. "I moved the $3 million through Blackwood Holdings this morning. The government has absolutely no idea she bought the building. The money looks totally clean." "Excellent work, Thomas," the woman replied. "Mrs. Ryu will be very pleased. She will deposit your standard 10% fee into your private offshore account by noon." "Tell her I said thank you," Thomas laughed happily. "Have a great day." He hung up the phone and started humming a happy, upbeat tune as he shifted the expensive car into drive. Ilara slowly pushed herself up from the floorboards. She ignored the sharp pain tearing through her chest. She raised the heavy gun, reached directly between the two front seats, and pressed the cold metal barrel directly into the back of Thomas Vance's thick, fleshy neck. Thomas froze instantly. The happy humming died in his throat. His hands gripped the leather steering wheel so hard his knuckles turned pure white. "Put the car in park," Ilara whispered. Her voice was dead and completely flat. "Listen to me," Thomas said. His voice was suddenly shaking violently. He sounded like a terrified little boy. "My wallet is right here in the center console. There is $3,000 in cash inside. Take it all, just take the money and get out of the car. I won't call the cops. I swear to God I won't say a word." "Put the fucking car in park, Thomas," Ilara repeated, pressing the barrel harder into his skin. Thomas quickly shifted the gear into park with a shaking hand. He didn't turn his head. Okay, it's in park. Please don't shoot me, just take the car. Take whatever you want." "Keep both of your hands flat on the steering wheel," Ilara ordered. He put his hands flat on the top of the wheel. "Okay, they are on the wheel." Ilara leaned forward slowly. She positioned her face right in the middle of the two seats, directly in the line of the small rearview mirror. "Look in the mirror, Thomas. Look at me." Thomas swallowed hard. He slowly shifted his terrified eyes up to the small glass mirror. He stared at the bruised, cold face of the woman sitting in his back seat. He looked at her dark brown eyes, her curly dark hair, and the sharp shape of her jaw. For a second he just looked totally confused. Then the blood completely drained out of his face. His skin turned the color of dirty chalk. "Ilara," he whispered. The name sounded like a curse coming out of his mouth. "It is a very nice surprise that you remember my face," Ilara said coldly, "since you haven't bothered to look at it for 15 years. Thomas's mouth opened and closed like a dying fish. "Ilara, what are you doing here? Why do you have a gun? Are you out of your mind? I am your father." "You are a piece of shit who left us to starve," Ilara said, her voice dropping to a dangerous, low hiss. "My mother is lying in a hospital right now. Her lungs are dying. She needed $30,000 just to keep the machines on. You knew she was sick. You knew we were drowning. And you told the court you were completely broke." She looked around the beautiful, expensive car. "This doesn't look broke, Thomas. Moving $3 million for Elena Ryu doesn't sound broke." Thomas started sweating heavily. Small drops of water rolled down his forehead. "You don't understand, Ilara. It's complicated, the business." "Shut up," Ilara snapped. She pulled the hammer of the gun back with her thumb. It made a loud, sharp clicking noise that echoed clearly inside the small car. Thomas jumped in his seat, letting out a pathetic little whimper. Okay, please don't do that. What do you want? I can write you a check right now. I can give you 50 grand, 100 grand, whatever you need for your mother. Just put the gun away. You are a good girl, Ilara. You don't want to hurt me." "I am not a good girl anymore," Ilara said. "Elena Ryu ran my car off the road yesterday with a heavy delivery truck. She tried to kill me because I accidentally married her precious billionaire son. I have 2 broken ribs. I have nothing left to lose. I am going to ask you a question, and if you lie to me, I will blow a hole straight through your neck." Thomas squeezed his eyes shut. Tears started leaking out of the corners. I won't lie, I swear I won't lie. How long have you been washing dirty money for the Ryu family? 5 years, Thomas choked out quickly. 5 years. Elena found me when I was working as a small real estate broker. She needed someone with a clean background to set up a shell company. She funded Blackwood Holdings. She uses it to buy commercial property across the city to hide her extra cash from the tax board. I just handle the paperwork. I don't do anything violent, I swear. Ilara stared at the back of his head. She knew who I was. When she came to the hospital yesterday, she knew my whole life story. Did you tell her about me? Thomas was quiet for a second. The heavy silence was the only answer Ilara needed. She pressed the gun so hard against his skin it left a deep red circle. Answer me. Yes, Thomas cried out, his shoulders shaking wildly. Yes, I told her. When she hired me, she did a full background check. She saw I had a daughter. A couple of years ago, when your mom got really sick, you tried to call me. You left all those voicemails begging for money. Elena heard one of them. She told me I was a liability. She said if I gave you money, it would create a paper trail back to her shell company. Ilara felt the entire world stop moving. Her own father, her own flesh and blood. She paid me, Thomas sobbed, his head dropping forward. She gave me $1 million bonus in cash. She told me to completely ignore your calls, to let your mother go into the public hospital system and disappear. I am sorry, Ilara. I am so sorry. I was just greedy. I didn't want to lose this life. Ilara's finger tightened slowly on the cold metal trigger. She wanted to pull it. She wanted to paint the expensive leather windshield with his blood. The rage inside her was so massive it almost blinded her. He sold his own sick wife and his starving daughter for $1 million. But killing him wouldn't fix her mother. Killing him wouldn't destroy Elena Rio. Ilara let out a slow, shaky breath. Take your phone out of your pocket, slowly. Thomas reached down with a shaking hand and picked up his expensive phone. Unlock it, Ilara ordered. He swiped his finger across the screen. The phone unlocked. Now, Ilara said, her voice completely hard and dead. Open your private banking app, the offshore account where Elena pays your fees, and the main account for Blackwood Holdings. Ilara, please, Thomas begged, holding the phone up. If I give you access to Blackwood, Elena will know I betrayed her. She will send men to my house. She will kill me. She is going to do that anyway, Ilara promised him smoothly. Because by the end of today, the Ryu family is going to have a massive hole in their empire, and they are going to blame you for it. Hand me the phone. Thomas hesitated. He looked at the mirror again. I will pull this trigger right now and take the phone off your dead body, Ilara told him. You have 3 seconds. 1, 2. Thomas threw the phone over his shoulder. It landed hard on the back seat next to Ilara's leg. Ilara kept the gun pressed against his neck with one hand. With her other hand, she picked up the phone. She looked at the screen. The Blackwood Holdings account was open. The balance was sitting right there in bright green numbers. $32 million. Ilara stared at the number. 32 million. And she had been scrubbing floors and taking abuse from Chloe for $15 an hour. She opened a text message to Marcus. She typed in the account routing numbers, the passwords, and the 2-factor authentication codes from the app. Take everything, she texted him, every single penny. Move it to the dark web accounts we set up. Leave the balance at absolutely 0. A second later, Marcus texted back, holy shit, processing now, give me 2 minutes. Ilara sat in the back of the car watching the digital numbers on Thomas's screen. For a minute, nothing happened. Thomas just sat in the front seat, crying quietly, his hands still gripping the steering wheel. Then the bright green numbers on the screen blinked. The 32 million disappeared completely. The screen refreshed, and a new number popped up in bold red letters. $0. Ilara smiled. It was a dark, cold, terrifying smile. It's gone, Ilara whispered softly. What? Thomas gasped, trying to turn his head. What did you do? I took Elena's money, Ilara said, pulling the gun away from his neck. She quickly opened the back door of the car. The cold morning fog instantly rushed inside. And I took all of your money too, Dad. Every single dollar you made from selling us out. She stepped out of the car, standing on the wet pavement. Thomas turned around in his seat, his face a mask of pure horror. You are dead, Ilara, Thomas screamed at her, spit flying from his lips. Elena will find out, she will hunt you down, you can't run from people like them. I am not running, Ilara said calmly. She looked down at him, feeling absolutely nothing but cold satisfaction. Tell Elena Ryu that the poor, pathetic girl she forced into a divorce isn't playing games anymore. Tell her I am coming for everything she owns, and tell her she better keep a very close eye on her son. Ilara slammed the heavy car door shut. She turned and walked away into the thick grey fog, leaving her father screaming in the empty parking lot.